We will now look at how different seasons require different markets and how we need to adapt our products to their needs. So low season travelers tend to seek more leisure and travel experiences for different purposes. They also seek different benefits and they search for suppliers differently. And actually what they'll be satisfied with and the type of service they'll require is different. It's not lower. Traveling at low season is not just a compromise and you accept a lower quality of service simply because there is less demand or because potentially you're paying less. This is also the time for you to learn about new markets, and you've got the time to get to know customers a lot better because you're less busy. And so let's use this time as a way of creating some kind of, let's call it market research if you want. We're trying to understand the needs of those different groups of customers. The knowledge that you'll gain now from customer needs and the things you'll be able to experience with and experiment with is going to put you in a really good position for when you then have a busier market demand in the peak season. I love this example of a pirate-themed historic monument. They started with a themed treasure hunt in the castle and around the castle, and that worked very well for summer, but they actually then considered, well, how do we move on from this? And so they created an escape game that was brilliant because it was kind of not weather dependent. And they also decided rather than having standard accommodation that everybody else had, they would create unusual accommodation that meant that people would be much more in touch with nature, but also there was greater demand for it because of its unique product. And they've used tree houses around their 9 hectares of parkland, and they found a way of then particularly targeting people in their 30s that had no children, as well as people in their 50s and 60s, and this complemented very well the family market they already had, and particularly because these other markets were less weather dependent or weather restricted and also less restricted by particular times of year. So what we learned from this is that in winter or off season in general, we need to really first think about locals. And the market for locals first has to be really strong, and we need to find a way of complementing those two markets. We also need to consider that in winter we tend to get more repeat customers and fewer first-time buyers. And the behavior of repeat customers is very different of those first-time buyers. First-time buyers tend to go to the iconic sites, the places that are the must-see and that you visit the first time you go to a place. Think of if you go for first time to Paris, you go to the Eiffel Tower. If you go to Paris for the fifth time, you probably don't anymore. And also, as you visit a place more often, you tend to behave more like a local. So you tend to be less predictable in where you buy and how you buy. But you also become more price sensitive and you tend to become much more aware of what is good quality and what will be local produce. So although repeat market and winter markets may spend less per person, what we tend to see is that the money they spend tends to trickle down into the local economy much more because the products and services then to buy tend to be supplied by local suppliers that in turn use local suppliers as well. So although for you, you may not get as much money as you may get with summer customers, the way in which that money trickles down into the local economy is really much higher. And we also need to think about, particularly with these markets, how do we encourage word of mouth? And how do we encourage these local first markets or repeat markets to recommend your products? All of this is very different to what we tend to find in summer, and many of properties have really adapted to do this. This Abbey in France is a great example of this. During the high season, they've got a very clear tourist calendar with some key must-see things that people can book with very short notice, and they tend to be the crowd pleaser sort of products. With the low season, they move to a non-tourist calendar, to something that's much more for local communities. They even reorganized the physical space inside the Abbey to be able to do this. And we need to find a way of being able to have flexible spaces as well as creative ways of designing our product that can match the needs of both markets. We have to find ways of encouraging repeat visits. This is the key to actually succeeding in off-season tourism products. And I don't think we're very good at this. We tend to imagine that marketing is something that will happen by itself, or that we do reluctantly, or the tourist boards will do for us. So it's very important to tell customers what to look forward to some way in advance. You can't have pictures on your website in October that show people wearing t-shirts and shorts because that's not what they're going to find when they come in winter. Okay, so you need to show photos of what the place will look like and how you expect them to behave at that time of year. You can also create annual passes, and these work particularly well for tourist attractions, or at least winter passes, or daytime passes. So you can encourage membership and you can encourage people to keep returning to your location. Again, you need to think about what costs you money and what generates revenue for you. So if allowing more people to enter your visitor attraction is not going to cost you money, but this will increase revenues through expenditure in the cafe or in the gift shop, then surely this is better than having your place entirely empty. You need to create a sense of belonging. Try to create clubs of regular users, trying to be the home for particular clubs or societies that will meet there on a regular basis, and give people a sense of as having a higher status or being rewarded for their loyalty with new offers, with ability to book for things in advance, for particular discounts. Find ways of creating that sense of ownership. Run clubs as well. Run kind of after school clubs for families or for children. Run activities that basically will make people feel like this is their home. Okay. And if you can, if you have no other opportunity, you may have to look at opportunities for discounting as a way of encouraging that repeat customer. But if you can, rather than discounting, look at upselling. Look at ways in which you can say, if you buy the standard product at this time of year, you will then get an additional product added for free. Okay, and provide some sort of loyalty gifts. Either opportunities for having a birthday gift. I've seen a number of shops that, for example, they say, you get a birthday discount, and on the week of your birthday, you get a 5% discount for any products that you purchase here. So we've noticed then a lot of teenagers, for example, saying, well, for my birthday, I want a voucher to be able to go to that particular shop, because then I'll go there and I'll be able to even get more out of my money. So look at ways in which you could provide some loyalty gifts along those lines around, well, you could get gift vouchers for Christmas, and then if that person comes and spends any money with that gift voucher at your souvenir shop, in your tourist attraction or in your business, or if they book in your hotel, then they get an additional discount because it was a birthday gift or it was a Christmas gift or whatever it was. We've noticed this sense of ownership and sense of belonging to be a really, really powerful way of generating people to return and to come back. And nowhere is this better seen than in the work done through the geocaching coordinator at the Charan Turisme. And what we've noticed here is that rather than just saying we'll provide geocaching opportunities, this is really pump prime with kind of online activities and a sense of being part of a club through the work that Laurence has been doing with this particular theme. We equally have a great example of how to do this with the example from northern Spain in the Pyrenees, that basically reproduced the National Trust 50 Things to Do before your 11 3/4 challenge, but they adapted it to what could be done within a large mountain resort. And what they did is they realized that for them the low season was spring and autumn, because in winter they get ski tours and in summer they're full anyway. And what they did is they created 50 things to do around their resort, most of them just engaging directly with nature, rolling down a hill, building a little hut, flying some kites, all of which are very wholesome and natural things. But 10 of those things could only be done in spring, and 10 of those things could only be done in autumn, based on the kind of nature things that you wanted them to do. And they give you a family passport and they give you prizes for challenges. And what they found is that families are returning much more often to continue doing some of those 50 things. Once you've done all 50, they give you a free weekend in a yurt or a teepee in spring or in autumn. And the manager tells me it's very well deserved, because by then they've already spent so much time, so much money in their resort, and typically they brought many friends, that the return investment for them as a result to do this is fantastic. So what we're learning from all this is that you need to consider different markets, and you need to consider what are the needs of those different markets that you've got. And when we look at different markets, there's nothing more important nowadays than being aware of the equality, diversity, and inclusion of your marketing strategies. And I'm saying there's nothing more important because we have to be much more empathetic towards the needs of others. And very often, when we thought of our marketing plans, inadvertently, we have targeted white, Christian, middle-class, heterosexual couples with 2 children who will be able to drive and will have no disabilities. Now, I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable by saying this, but I think it's worthwhile if you consider your own marketing, including the photos of people you're using and the way in which your products are designed. And I understand you may say, but actually that's the group I know how to target, and that's the group that has responded best to my marketing activities. But if we're generally trying to be sustainable, we need to think about a much broader range of people. Okay? Because it's the right thing to do, but also because there are commercial opportunities out of doing this for servicing groups of society that at the moment have been excluded from the possibility of traveling in the same way that our mainstream group or the key group that we've targeted the most has been targeted. So let's consider the chances that we've got to actually be much more open towards different groups and how we serve their needs. We see this really well with an example on the business run by Sonia in Northumberland in the north of the UK. They have designed a cottage in a way that it is really, really easy for people with disabilities to be part of it. And particularly, it is important for those people to feel like they're totally welcome. We do not need properties like this to look like hospitals. We need them to be places that are allowing all of us to be together and to encourage that time together. What Sonia has noticed is that because their property is so unusual in being designed in a very inclusive way, their occupancy rate for their self-catering cottage is more than 80%. Consider that the average for this region is 55% annual occupancy. And people are booking far in advance, and they're booking at any time of year because the property is so unique. One of the things, for example, they did is to include a beautiful outdoor jacuzzi that encourages families, including those that will have any disabilities, physical or otherwise, to be able to enjoy that outdoor space, all of them together. So this essentially the property has been designed around the concept of togetherness and the ability to be inclusive for everybody in the entire family. So as a task for you to consider today, I want you to understand and to identify complementary markets to the key markets you work with. Remember, low season means more local, shorter stays, booking late or just turning up. They're likely to be repeat visitors and they're likely to seek variety because they already know certain products. You will have to work with these new markets, and what you'll be able to do by doing this is reduce your dependency on a single market, and this will make you a much more resilient business. So to do this, the task ahead is prepare a day calendar and consider what facilities you've got and what times of day your facilities are busy and what times of day they're not busy. And color code it and consider when you're not busy on some of those facilities, who could be using that space and how will the usage of that space generate a revenue for you that is more than the variable cost of providing that service. So it will make a contribution to the fixed costs that you're going to have whether you are open or not. Do the same for times of day, do it for days of the week, and then do it for different weeks or months of the year. And consider where is your slack and where can you actually fill up some of that occupancy, some of that empty capacity you've got in different ways. Color code it, and color code it as red if you've got less than 50% of usage, amber if you've got less than 75% usage, and say it's green if you have more than 75% occupancy. And then very visually you'll be able to see what times of day, what days of the week, and what different weeks of the month you've got capacity, and then you'll be able to think, how do I fill that up in any way? And then make a list of different kinds of customers that you've got and consider how your different groups of customers can basically be targeted to change their behavior. So for example, you've got a group A, and that group A is a group that is very loyal to you. And so you'll think, well, how can I encourage them to spend more with us? How can I encourage them to bring a friend with them the next time they come? How can I encourage them to come at a different time of year to when they're coming so far? You'll have a group B that you can identify actions that you can increase the number of people at the same time. And you'll have a group C, for example, of potential customers that at the moment are not patronizing my business, but we think they would be able to come.